So this is what I'm dealing with. Stinking lake. Hey everyone, welcome back. So if you're familiar with the channel, you might be saying to yourself, hey, that's not an old muscle car. What's going on? And you'd be right. This is my wife's 2019 Volkswagen Atlas R line, and I am chasing a little bit of a water issue with this thing. So she came home the other day and she said, hey, go out and jump in the car. It smells horrendous. And we got out here and we started looking around, trying to figure out what in the world was going on. And the cup holders in the back, these cup holders back here had almost 1.5 inches, 2 inches of water in them. And they've probably been sitting like that in this hot Midwestern weather for the last couple of weeks. I mean, it's just really her and I that, get in this car. We don't have any younger kids anymore that pile in the back. So pretty sure that water was in there. We had a pretty crazy rainstorm that we drove through a few weeks ago. And so immediately, as soon as I saw that water, nightmares of an old Volkswagen Tiguan that my daughter had. She had a 2011 that had a panoramic sunroof issue. And so anyway, guess what? I'm chasing a similar thing with the 2019. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna pour some water. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna pour some water. I've got some water sitting over there in a cup. And there are, on these panoramic on these panoramic sunroofs, like any sunroof, it's not just specific to Volkswagen, there are typically going to be 4 drain holes or drain tubes. So there's going to be one down in this corner here, and then the same over on the other corner. And what you have down inside of here is you just have basically a sunroof rain gutter or water gutter. Some people call them a channel. And it's basically a sunroof frame that goes all around the opening, and it basically diverts the water into these drain tubes. There's a nipple in each corner, so there'd be basically 4 little nipples in each corner, and there's a tube attached to it, and then that tube drains out. And so what I'm hoping, especially since this is just a 2019, so it's just a few years old, what I'm hoping is that it's just an issue with the drain tubes and they haven't come detached. I mean, I've seen that happen before where the tubes actually come loose from the nipples, and then the water just drains right into the headliner. And so anyway, and so in the back, I didn't mention this, but in the back, and we can't get to them from the top up here, but in the back, there's going to be a drain tube kind of in this corner and a drain tube over in the other corner as well. So we're gonna try to work on that. So we were super surprised that this was happening because it is such a new car. But when I got in here and started looking at the roof, and I don't know if this is going to show up on camera, it's kind of tough because it's dark in here. Basically the telltale sign is that there was a line of water spots, basically a water line all the way around this headliner. So obviously it's leaking from up above. It just so happened to be raining today. It wasn't raining that hard, but it rained enough that I could get in here and I could see that the headliner was wet. So the first thing, again, what I want to do is I'm just going to pour some water in each side of this window channel here, or sunroof channel. I'm going to try to pour it in here so that it will run down towards this corner, and then I'll go to the other side in that corner, and then we'll try to make sure that we get it to run this way. So the first thing that I want to do is I just want to see whether or not water is even draining out of the drain tubes. If it is, that's partly a good sign, because that just means that the tubes are at least still connected. Doesn't mean they're not leaking at the clamp, but it does mean that they're still connected. So we're going to take a look at that, and I'll mention this a little bit more, and I'll climb up underneath here. So there's going to be a spot back behind here that the tube comes from the sunroof down and it drains out. And then there's also going to be a tube that basically runs from this drain spot. It runs down into the A-pillar, and it comes in, and then it drains down inside of here. Something that I don't think Volkswagen used to do, but they're doing now, is they're putting these little spider traps, basically a little flapper. If you think about a the exhaust on a tractor, that little flapper on that pipe, they've got these little flappers called spider traps, and I'll show you when I get those off. And they're kind of more of a pain than anything. So I have a feeling, because this car actually sits outside, we've got a really beautiful pain in the neck oak tree in our front yard, and it just drops everything throughout the seasons on it. I'm suspecting that it's just plugged up. I mean, you can see that I've already started to get in here and clean some of this stuff out of here. But I have a feeling that the tubes are draining a little bit, but if we get enough rain, it's plugged enough that it can't keep up, and so it backs up and then starts overflowing into the car. So anyway, hang tight here. I'm going to start pouring some water, and I'll come back and show you whether or not the tubes are draining. Okay, so we're just kind of inspecting here after pouring some water into the sunroof channel up there, the gutter. And from the front left, the driver's side here, the water immediately drained out of the tube. It barely even collected up there in that gutter. So I'm pretty sure that that particular tube is definitely okay. We're still going to pull the cowl vent off, or the window wiper vent off, and take a look at it and run some line through it. But that looks just fine, as I suspected, because there wasn't any leaking up in the front. It was all at the rear. So in terms of the left rear, I do have some drips, but they're not great. Now, granted, the car is a little bit sloped. It's leaning forward, so it may have been a little bit difficult to get water, to force the water to run to the back. But I actually had it outside yesterday on an incline, and I had a little bit better water flow out of this back left drain. But it's not running through there the greatest. So we're going to take a look at that. And then if we kind of compare it to the other side, this is the passenger side, and it's dripping through there real good. So again, I think that maybe that other side is allowing water to get through, but if you put it in there at a rapid rate, it's going to back up before it all drains out, and then it's going to leak up into the headliner. So, and then let's take a look here at the front, and you can see here the front is draining as well. You can see a little bit of a puddle there, so that looks good. But like I said, we're gonna go ahead and take everything apart and check all of the drains. I'm gonna run weed eater string through all of it, and go from there. So a couple of things here in terms of the back, the tube, and I'll climb underneath there here in a minute, and I'll show you. But the drain tube, like I said, it's kind of back behind this mud flap. It's actually in a weird spot. It's actually kind of up. It's kind of up in this area behind the wheel housing here. So the wheel housing has to come out really to get some good access, and the best way to do that is go ahead and just pull the rear tires off, so that way you can take the screws out of the wheel well housing here, and I'll just put it up on the lift, and we'll get the tires off real quick. And then up on the front, the cowl screen or the window wiper vent, it will also need to come out because the drain tubes are back inside of here. And that's really easy to do. You just want to take off the cowl to hood seal. Just pull that off all the way. And then there are going to be some clips, 3 clips, 1, 2, and then there's a third one over there. You can just pull those out with a screwdriver or a little pick. Don't lose them. They're kind of spring loaded, so when you pull them out, they might want to pop around. So maybe cover them up with your hand or a rag. So we're going to pop those off and pull the cowl screen off, and we're going to inspect those. So I'll get all of that ready to go, and then I'll show you where we are here in just a second. So just real quick here, I did forget to mention, in addition to pulling the cowl seal off and these 3 little clips, you also need to pull the wiper arms off as well, and that's super easy. There's just going to be these 2 little caps that are covering the nuts on the wiper arms, and then there'll be a 13mm nut underneath that cap that you'll have to take out. So I've got the caps here and the nuts just sitting here. The other thing that will help is if you mark them, you could use a Sharpie on the glass if you wanted, and just clean it up with some alcohol later, or you could just put some tape to get you kind of close when you go to put them back on. So now all we'll do is we'll just kind of rock these arms a little bit. We'll wiggle them to get them loose, and then they should pull right off, and then we should be able to get the cowl screen off. All right, so I'm just working on getting this weed eater line and cable fed through the drain tube. And so I actually thought we were going to be able to see up in there, but I don't know if we can. I can't really get in there with the camera, but I thought the drain tubes dropped down just a little bit more, but you can kind of see right there where the cable or the weed eater line's going up into the tubing. And all I'm doing is running it all the way through the tubing to make sure it's all cleaned out. So over on the driver's side, everything was fine. I was able to run the cable through there just fine. So you can use a weed eater line if you want. I actually have a cable that I like to use. I've been doing this on a number of different cars, so I actually like to use this cable. The only thing, at least on this Atlas, is I can't run the cable from the top here. I can't run it into the drain hole here because I can't get it bent. There's not enough flexibility to get it bent and run it down. So I basically run it from underneath here. The other thing is, and I don't know if the factory didn't put those on there, this car really hasn't been in for that much service, but it did not have the speed or the spider traps on the ends of the line here. So maybe they just didn't put them on. I do know that there's a service bulletin or a tech bulletin out on these cars to basically have those spider traps removed. It's not a recall, but it is just a little bit of a service bulletin that they have on them. So anyway, just like I said, I like to run this cable up through there. I feel like that does a little bit better job of cleaning the tubing out, and it's a little bit more rigid, so it goes up in there pretty easily. Interesting though, I could not get it fed all the way from the bottom up to the top. So usually what I do is I feed it all the way up until I can see it at the top, pour some water through, and then run the cable kind of up and down a few times just to make sure that it's good and clean. I was having a hard time. I couldn't get the cable to go all the way up from the bottom, and I couldn't get the weed eater line to come all the way through from the top. So there must have been some type of obstruction, even though it looked like there was some water still coming out. So I finally doubled this. I finally doubled this weed eater line over and wrapped some duct tape around it, just to make it just a little bit more rigid, and I was able to get it fed all the way through. Now what I've done is I've basically tied it onto the cable, and now I'm going to pull from the top up here, and I'm going to see how far I can get that cable pulled all the way up. The other thing that you can do sometimes is, if you've got a long enough line, is you can pull on both ends almost like you're flossing to get that all cleaned out. So I'm going to finish this up here, put some water down it, it should be fine, and then we're going to move to the back. So I've got the front all finished, I've got it all buttoned up, I've got the wipers all put back in the wiper cowl screen all put back. So now I'm just got the car up on the lift, and I am working on running some cable through the tube, the drain tube here, for the driver's side rear drain tube. So yeah, the best thing to do is just go ahead and take the tire off, and then you want to take the wheelhouse out and just get it out of your way. You know, it's kind of weird. I'm so used to metal wheelhouses. This is basically some type of felt material. It's kind of weird because it gets wet. It was raining today. We were driving around, and so it's all wet and soggy, but super easy to take out. Once you get the wheel and tire out of the way, it's really easy. There's just a series of T25 star drive or T25 drive bolts that need to be taken out, and then there are a couple of fasteners. The mud flap's got to come out. I've got the mud flap there, and there's just a couple of interior or exterior trim buttons here that have to come out as well. So once you get all of the screws and the trim clips out, the wheelhouse just pulls right out super easy. And then this is the spider trap that I've been talking about right here. It's just basically a little lid, and so I have a feeling that they either didn't put them up front or they took them out, because when I was fiddling with the tubes up front underneath the wiper cowl, I could see, or I could feel this tab, and so maybe they've already been taken out of the front. I'm going to take them out of here. So what happens, I mean, I see the design, and I guess it makes sense to try to keep anything from getting up in there and plugging it. But for crying out loud, it's covered by the wheel house, or the inner wheel house here. So nothing's really going to get up in there. I mean, it's, you know, relatively clean. I mean, it's a 2019, but it's a relatively clean area here. So yeah, it's just kind of a weird situation. So what we're going to do is, let me get the lighting fixed here a little bit. What we're going to do is I'm going to basically pull it off of there and clean it out. Now, before I turn the camera on, I actually opened it up. If I can get in there, I actually opened it up, and you can see it's pretty gunky. So we're gonna see if we can get that all cleaned out, and then, like I said, we're gonna probably pop that off of there and just leave it off. I think it's causing more trouble than it's worth. Especially, like I'd mentioned earlier, we park this outside most of the time, and we've got that big tree, and so everything just comes down, and it's just getting all washed down in that tubing. So I'm gonna open this up. I'm gonna just pop this right off. It should come right off. I mean, I might be able to do it now, but I'm gonna do it with both hands because I don't want to tear that tab off. And we're gonna start running the cable up through it, and we'll be back. So I think this project's just taking a turn for the worse. So I ran my cable up through, and I had a little bit of obstruction going in there at first, and then I was able to thread it up in there, and then I basically was hearing the cable up against bare metal, and I don't really think I should be hearing something like that. I can hear it like hitting on the inside of the quarter here, and I really don't think it should sound like that, because it should be a tube, so it should be basically rubber all the way up to the top. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna probably have to pull the interior out and look up in there to make sure that the tubes are connected. And I mean, I knew there was a little bit of water getting in here, but this is what I'm faced with now. All of this water in here. So anyway, I've got the spare out of it, obviously. I'm gonna put the rear tire back on it. I'm gonna set it down on the floor, and I'm gonna start working on getting this side of the interior pulled out, and basically find out if the drain tubes have come disconnected from the nipples back behind there. Okay, so I've decided, you know, since I found a bunch of water down here in the wheel well area, and when I was pushing the cable up through the drain tube that's in the wheel well here, and I could hear it hitting bare metal in here, so I pretty much thought that the tubing had come loose. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, what I did is I actually pulled all of the interior plastic out of here, the panels, at least got them to where I could look back behind into the wheel well there. And so the tubing did come loose from the drain plug down there, but I don't think that was the problem. I think that was probably just simply because pushing the cable through, I hit some blockage, I put some pressure on it, and it just popped it out. So I don't think that was the issue. But if you have to go this route, you can actually, if you're just kind of working up in this area, because you can see the drain tube is right here, and it runs up and then runs up over to the nipple on the sunroof gutter, and then it runs down through here back behind this panel, and then it connects into a fitting, and then it drains out in the wheelhouse area. So if you're only kind of working up in this area, you can just take this panel off. You don't have to take all of it off. You can just take this panel off. It just kind of sits right up in here like this. It's just got some clips that hold it in place. I've got to put the clip back in there. It fell out when I took it apart, but you couldn't just do that, because I needed to get back behind there to the wheel well area. I needed to move this panel, and so I started by taking out this kick plate here, and it's pretty simple. I just use a little interior pry bar, and you just get in there and pop it up. It snaps down in a couple of areas, so just pop it up, and then once you do that, it'll just kind of come right out, and you can see the clips there that hold it in. So just, you know, do it gentle. Don't get too carried away with it. You don't want to break it. Sometimes these will pop off, so just listen for them and keep track of them. So once you have that out of the way, then what you can do is you can take this panel out right here, this and at least on this interior, this grayish black panel. And that's real simple. There's just a couple of push tabs here that you would push on, and then it rocks out of the way and it comes right out. And then from there you can pop the rest of this interior off. Now I can do this and get back behind there to the wheel well without taking the entire panel off, but if you needed to, you could take this entire panel out. You'd have to take this the rear seat or the third row seat out and get it out of the way. At least as far as I know, you'd have to. But I'm able to get back behind here. I can just kind of leverage just a little bit and then get back in there. And it's going to be a little bit hard to see without the lighting, but back in there is where that tube fits into the drain port. And like I said, it had come apart, but it wasn't because it was already apart, it was because I was pushing the cable through there. So what I've done is I've unplugged the cable, or sorry, the tube, and here it is right here, so you can see the end of it. So a couple of things that I've done is I've ran my cable back up through there, and I did finally get to a point where it wouldn't go in any further, and it wasn't, at least I didn't think it was blockage. So the other thing that's nice if you go this route is you can actually blow some air through here. I'd be careful about compressed air because you don't want to, you know, knock it loose from the fitting. So I mean, I just blew on it. I just put my mouth on it and blew some air through it to make sure that it wasn't plugged. So it is fully clear now. It should be in good shape, so I'm going to plug it all back together. I'm going to test it by pouring some water up in the sunroof channel and put this side together, and then I'm going to go ahead and come back over and do the right side, and hopefully we'll get this thing done, and hopefully this takes care of the problem. I don't want it to be a situation where there's something wrong with that gutter up above around the sunroof, but if that's the case, it's going back to Volkswagen. The dealer can deal with that. I'm not going to deal with it. It's all under warranty. But these drains aren't under warranty. So if they just get in there and clean them out and run a cable up through them, they're going to charge me to do that. So I'm going to make sure that it's all clear, all the drains are clear. And then if it still leaks, it's going to go back to the dealer. I'm on the passenger side here at the rear where the drain tube goes into the port and then drains out the wheel well. And I thought I would just show this real quick because I'm not taking the entire panel off. I'm just kind of pushing it back here, and I can get a lot better shot over here than I could on the driver's side. So that's basically what it looks like there, right there. And that tube will come out really easily. I can get on there and just pull it out real easily. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and wrap a little bit of duct tape around it just to kind of hold it in place. I couldn't do that on the other side because I couldn't quite get in there, but I've got this all cleaned out. I ran my cord or my cable up through there and got it all cleaned out, and then I pulled it off and blew through it, and it's good and clean now. So we're going to run some water through it, and then we're going to put all of this trim back on, and I'm going to go ahead and leave the cargo area open for right now because it's so soaked with water. It's going to need a few days to dry out, but we'll go ahead and get all this put back together, and we'll get the wheel well back in. I've got it back in on the other side, and this one's kind of, let me get a light here real quick. This one's kind of hidden up back behind the air conditioning stuff for the rear, but you can see the port right there where it drains out, and I've already taken that spider trap off, and I'm just going to leave both the spider traps off on the rear. I've actually got it sitting here on the floor. This is the spider trap. It just sits in there like that. It has a little bit of a hinge there, that hinge on that little rubber tab that's on the port, and you can see that it was already starting to stack up a lot of crud. And this one was clogged a little bit too. So I'm hoping now that I've got those lines all blown out that I've resolved this leaking issue. But we're gonna wait and see. Like I said, I'm gonna leave everything here out for now, let it dry out, and then maybe I'll run it through the car wash or take the power washer to it and see if it leaks. And so since I've got all this stuff out, this will be a really good way to tell if it's leaking. If this wheel well, spare tire well starts to fill up with water, then I know that I've got a problem. And like I said earlier, all the drains are clear now and they're all cleaned out. So if it's still leaking, it's going to Volkswagen and the dealer can deal with it, because that will definitely be a warranty issue then. So anyway, that's pretty much it. We've got this side all back together. Got the tire back on it. I've got the wheel well back in. And so anyway, we're just gonna get everything put together back on the other side, and we'll test it one more time. But that's pretty much it. Hey guys, so it's been about 9 months now since I cleaned out the Atlas sunroof drain tubes and removed those little spider traps, the little flaps from back behind the rear wheel well. So in that time, we've had some pretty good torrential downpours here in the Midwest, and we've also ran the car through the car wash probably a dozen and a half times since then. So now that everything's been exposed to some weather, there's been an opportunity now for water to get down into those drain tubes. I thought it might be a good time to just provide a quick update on how things are going in terms of whether or not draining those tubes out really fix the problem or not. I think probably the biggest thing is whether or not removing the spider traps made any difference. So let's just take a quick peek here inside of the car, and I'll just kind of give you a quick update. Like I said, we've been monitoring this for quite a while now, and I'm happy to report that we haven't had any problems with water coming down through the sunroof area here and soaking the headliner. So we did have some rain last night, and so I thought it would be a good time to go ahead and put together a quick update here. So like I said, it's been about 9 months since I did all of that work, cleaning those tubes out. I think really the big thing is removing the spider traps has made the biggest difference, because if you go back and look, they were definitely holding the gunk in the tube, wasn't letting it pass out through the tube. And so eventually they got plugged, and then the water just started to back up the tube and then come through the drip rail, or sorry, the sunroof channel areas, and then soak the headliner. So anyway, I think now that I'm confident that I've got her all fixed up, now I'm just going to have to get in here and detail the headliner, because you can still see, I don't know if it's coming through on the camera, but you can still see where the water lines are from the original issue. And again, it's been about nine months since I did all of that work and clean those out. So again, I'm happy to report that that seems to be the fix. If you guys are having a similar problem, that's the first place that I would check. I would check to make sure, one, that your drain tubes are all cleaned out. And the next thing that I would do is I would just make sure that your spider traps aren't causing a problem. And in fact, I'd probably just remove them. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, Volkswagen has a technical bulletin out now, a service bulletin, and I think they're actually removing those spider traps from these Atlases because of this leaking problem that I've had, as well as others. So the other thing that's kind of interesting or ironic maybe is that since I've done this repair here, or this, kind of did this procedure of cleaning those tubes out, I've gotten 2 or 3 letters from Volkswagen. There must have been some type of class action lawsuit or something with Volkswagen. And so what they're doing is they're offering to reimburse anyone who paid out of pocket to fix the damage that happened because of this drain tube issue. Now, I didn't have anybody service the car or work on the sunroof, so I wasn't entitled to get any type of reimbursement, because I did all of this myself. So anyway, I just thought that was pretty interesting, that was one of the things that I've been getting in the mail lately. So anyway, hopefully that video was helpful. Definitely ask me any questions, provide comments if you have having the same problem, or if you found another solution. But for me, it looks like cleaning out the drain tubes and then ultimately removing the spider traps. And again, those were back behind the rear wheel well here. Removing those seemed to solve my problem. I should also mention that cleaning those tubes out should be part of routine maintenance, whether you do that yourself or whether you have the Volkswagen dealership do it. So anyway, like I said, thanks for checking out the video. Thanks for tuning in. And that should do it. I think we've got the problem solved.